Good morning. What's good, y'all? It's Brian back with the episode of the Trial and Error podcast. Been super busy. But here's the thing. So if you're seeing this wherever you are, and you kind of like the vibe what we're talking about, or you've seen an episode somewhere, go ahead and follow us on whatever platform you're seeing us on. Go ahead and subscribe if it's on Facebook or YouTube, just so that you can see more of this kind of stuff. Because we touch on a lot of different things in the Trial and Error podcast, and some of it's personal, some of it's political, but we try to keep it fresh and keep things moving. My name is Brian. I am a marketing consultant who's shutting down parts of my agency to start a new franchise or a new endeavor. It's called the Media Room. I'm basically building out a content studio for business owners so that they can hop online and create usable content that's not overly produced, overly slick, and doesn't require it doesn't require a whole team of professional videographers and stuff. And so basically, it's basically giving them usable content and teaching them the process, teaching them the mindset of a marketer when it comes to this kind of stuff. And so, if you want to get down with that, I can go ahead and post the link for that. If you're interested, in your business owner, basically what I'm offering is I have my secret sauce and secret origin packages, and what you get is a usable video. One you could pick which one you want to do, either the secret sauce, where you basically talk about what makes your business unique, or your secret origin, which is more or less telling you what your secret origin is, what the story is behind your business. I'm offering both of those as my beta offers for people that are interested, and so I can kind of post the link. If people are interested in signing up, I'm booking out clients. I want to get started and get this thing launched early March. Okay, and so that's what I got going on. I appreciate you guys if you want to jump in there. I have a lot of other offers, but this is the main one that I'm pushing right now. Um, so, and I'm putting it in beta client. All right. And so this is going to be an offer that I'm listing out here. So if you're interested and want to get down, if you want to learn the process of how to make content for your business that converts, go ahead and scan the QR code and get down with me. And so that's the Media Room by I Sell Words. All right. So to get things started and get things rolling. Hey, what's going on? What's up? What's up? Thanks for jumping on. To get things started, I've been really, really super busy. I had a funeral to attend. Lost my father-in-law a couple weeks ago. It's been really, really difficult. And so I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. I'm going to be doing a live stream about John Henryism, which is a lot of Black folks' tendency to try to work through grief or interpersonal things and basically working yourself to death. And it's not just unique to Black folks, but there's a unique cultural experience that aligns with that. And so I'm going to be doing that on a live stream a little bit later on. If you're interested, it's a Blurting While Dad stream. You can tune in on that one. But yeah, I've been trying to get my feet under me and trying to balance the fact that we're dealing with a lot of really heavy stuff in the family. And my coping mechanism has always been throwing myself into my work, and it prevents me. Sometimes it helps me. Other times it actually actively prevents me from fully experiencing, whatever interpersonal things I got going on. And so I'll be processing that. And so I'm just kind of chewing through that. And so I wanted to get back to kind of the conversations that I have in my house and with my wife and Fearless and I have off air and so like this. And so the concept behind this today is we're going to be talking about and make sure I get the title right, when life became public and politics became personal. Okay. And I'm prefacing all that by saying this. If you're Black or brown or any kind of person of color or any kind of marginalized group, your existence in America is inherently political because depending on where you stand, your very existence can be a political statement, depending on who's willing to tolerate you and who has a problem with you or not. You're not intentionally making it like that. That's just how it be. um, and a lot of times it's kind of a weird juxtaposition because I'm like, I'm just standing here speaking what my experience is in life, and somebody is saying, well, you're making it political. I don't want to make it political. And it's like, but I'm just telling what my life experience is. And so um there's this weird crossover. And one of the things that you got to be cognizant of is this. Um, I am a Zennial, which means I sit between Generation X and the millennials. And for those that don't know what a Zennial is somebody that is old enough to remember life before the internet, but young enough to participate in the internet connected life, which means I was old enough to have an entire living memory and living history of life, probably up until high school, where we weren't as online. Social media didn't necessarily really become a thing until I got into college. And even then it was still kind of a fringy kind of thing. Like we had chat rooms and things like that. You had AOL, but it wasn't, it was kind of this fringe thing. It wasn't like everybody was online. And so I remember a very different kind of existence. And so one of the things I was talking to my kids about was this. I have good morning, good morning. Thanks for tuning in. How are things down in Texas, man? Um, right now we are kind of dealing with this weird thing where it can't decide if it wants to be winter or spring. We just had a snowstorm and it's going to be damn near 60 today. So we're in that weird space. But I had the conversation with my kids and it was kind of a enlightening conversation with my daughter where, she's 16 years old and I'm trying to explain to her, like, I need you to understand, for me, I grew up in an age where I can look at something and say, hey, that's the internet. The internet ain't real. And I can make that disconnect in my brain. And there are specific pieces of internet culture that I had the opportunity to either opt in on or opt out of. And for a lot of younger folks who kind of grew up hardline in the millennial space, that wasn't necessarily an option because a lot of their social interaction was online. A lot of their friends groups are online and things like that. A lot of my friends group is online and offline. So I can meet up with them in real life, call them and talk to them in real life, or I can interact with them online. And so there's a layer where there's a difference. And so for me, I have the ability to say, oh yeah, so such and such is getting dragged, such and such is getting canceled, whatever. That's online. It's bullshit. I don't really care about it. It's not real to me. Where kids, where the generational thing, where people right behind me, millennials really don't have that layer because a lot of their interacting during their formative years took place in an online format. Okay. And so we've kind of transitioned to that world. And so now we're a couple generations deep. So we got what's it, Gen Ys, the millennials, Zoomers, Gen Alpha. I'm trying to keep all this in my mind. Keep it in order in my mind. We have all of these things, all these different groups that are, we're a couple of generations deep in the internet culture. And the more immersed we get into it, the more connected the kids are, where for them, internet shit is real to them. It's a reality to them. Warm and 75 degrees. We're supposed to be up to 70 at the end of this week. We just had kind of a mini blizzard here. Was it last Thursday, Friday, or whatnot? Shut down the city, and now next week we're going to be up. I don't know what the weather's trying to do. I don't know. I think I saw a Captain Planet episode about this, but I don't know. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. And so the kids, the younger folks are really in where the internet is real to them. The interactions online are real. Insults are real. The bullying is real. They can really feel hyper emotionally invested in shit that happens online. And I see it with my daughter and son, where these online internet movements will fire up and start, and they're super passionate about it. And for me, I'm like, well, you getting so fired up about it? It's just online. It's not real until it crosses over into the real world. That's a generational gap. And well versed enough in the internet culture to understand that without being totally dismissive of what my kids' experience is. And so I'm trying to build in this world where they can have a little bit of my childhood where this shit is not as online. Okay. But here's the reality. Most of life used to be private, bro. Like most of human history used to be kind of a private thing. You know, shit would happen, and it happened off record. And the only documentation you had of the shit happening was whether somebody was there to record it or felt like it was um, important enough to communicate to other people. Okay. But human history happened off record. People could experiment, grow, contradict themselves without having an audience of billions immediately. Look at club culture. When I was in college, um, people go out to the club for a number of reasons, but people go out to dance and have a good time and cut loose. And to hear kids tell it now, and I say kids, but I'm talking about 20-year-olds or people in that age bracket, hear them tell it now. Everybody who goes to the club sits on their phone, sits in a chair, and all they do is just stare at each other and make fun of the people that are there to dance and cut loose. Because nobody wants to dance cut loose at the club because they're scared that it's going to go viral and they're going to get made fun of. I didn't have that experience. A lot of people I know that are professionals now, if their club world got documented, if you in 2000s, 2001, early 2000s, right? If you actually did a documented record of what people were doing in the club, there's a lot of people that are professionals right now that would not have jobs. I'm dead ass serious. A lot of people would have this, the way they were cutting up and the way they were getting in the club, they would be hard. There's a lot of people that are heads of churches, heads of industry, um, in charge of people, teachers, professors, and all this other stuff. If you documented how they was in the club back in the 2000s, they would have a very difficult time holding that position because you didn't have the all-seeing eye of the internet on you back then. Right now, we are living in this all-seeing eye of the internet where every interaction, good and bad, can be documented and cataloged and broadcast to billions of eyeballs instantaneously. And I don't think we're quite grappling or we're quite understanding what that actually means. I don't think people are really connected with what that actually means. And for people my generation, we still have the ability to say that shit is on the internet. The internet ain't real. But then you get a little bit older, and the older demographics are really hyper online. And, and so now we're dealing with parents and stuff who are 100% believing 100% AI internet generated bullshit. And we have to talk them off of a ledge. And so we're kind of in this weird sandwich generation where I grew up with it and I understand that a lot of internet is just bullshit. It's not real things. But the people below me and the people that are older than me and younger than me are really struggling with this. And I think it comes from being able to have my feet in both worlds, if I'm being honest with you. Okay. But most life used to be private. It happened off record. Your identity was really contextual based on where you were and who was watching. And so you had the ability to be one way in one context and be a different way in another context. And there was no recorded record or no internet record of you being either one of those people, and you were whoever you could pretend to be. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the Kurt Vonnegut in me. Okay. Your specific, and now we're going to get into a little bit of sociological stuff. While your political beliefs didn't define your entire existence, they did shape it because, again, your political identity did shape some of your experience. But now people are able to brand themselves as a specific type of political identity, and then find a group echo chamber that reinforces that political identity, um, where that ends up becoming their entire world. And it's really a bizarre thing to watch. Again, I'm not one of those people that will say, you shouldn't cut people off because of their politics. I 100% believe if somebody's politics are harmful to you, and harmful to your existence, you absolutely should cut them off and not fuck with them. It doesn't matter if they're friends, family, whatever. If you can extricate them from your life, I'm fine with that. I don't have an issue with it, to be honest with you. But I also am really leery of hyper online people, who fall into these weird online political cults, if it makes sense. They kind of brand themselves as this. Seen it in MAGA spaces, I've seen it in libertarian spaces, and you see it more loosely on the left, where it's a little bit looser affiliation, but people who really get passionate about a specific thing. And that ends up becoming their identity online. I've seen people build entire identities online about, I don't like AI, and that's their entire online identity. And that's all they talk about online. And at some point it bleeds into, okay, this is the thing that brings attention to what I'm doing. And so now my identity brings attention to who I am. And so at some point, where does the internet me end and the real me begin? And I think that that's what happens in a lot of senses. Okay. Relationships before, when life used to be private, relationships existed outside of this ideological alignment. Okay. And it was good and bad, because sometimes, and I've seen it where couples who are wildly ideologically opposed can somehow make shit work, but other times it turns into this weird extended long honeymoon period, up until the point where the political ideologies collide because some real shit happened in their interpersonal relationships, and it explodes in a real way. I've seen both ends of this. So I'm not saying it used to be it's 100% positive nor negative. Okay. Just saying it's what happens. Okay. And so we moved from living privately to living observably. We went from living privately to living observably, which means we went from just kind of existing in our lives and only sharing what we wanted to share. In some cases, not even having the ability to broadcast our shit directly to the internet, which is probably a good thing. I always say about, sites like Twitter and Threads and things along those lines, even Facebook to a degree, mankind was not meant to have this level of access to people's half-thought thoughts or incomplete thoughts. We were not meant to have this level of access. We weren't meant to have this level of access to people still processing things and then typing things as they're processing, because the shit that comes to your brain while you're processing may not be what your final evolution or what your final stance is on things. And we weren't meant to have this level of access. We weren't meant to see that shit. And I think unfortunately we've got across that event horizon where that is what's happening, where your worst impulses, your worst instincts, your worst thoughts can absolutely escape your brain, and before you even know it, you've posted online and people are responding to it. Okay. So here's the question to sit with. What changes about you when you know you're always potentially being watched? How do you adjust your life? How do you adjust what you do when you are always potentially being observed or watched in some way, shape, or form? How do you moderate your actions? How do you amplify your actions when you know you're always being potentially watched? I worked in a unique environment. I worked in a residential group home environment that was on a campus. Those that live locally know what I'm talking about. And as somebody who worked in there, it was essentially working in a fishbowl. And I was only an assistant. I didn't live there. I would go in and help the people that lived there manage the homes and whatnot. And every once in a while, I would stay overnight to give them a day off or something. Okay. But it was very much living in a fishbowl environment where everybody knew everybody's business. And a lot of the social things that they did, the bar that they all went to, that's where a lot of secrets got spilled that probably shouldn't have gotten spilled out to um, the larger group of people. You could tell who was sleeping with um, who had a drinking issue, um, who broke a rule, and it was kind of a quiet thing on campus that everybody's talking about. I didn't go to these things. I got invited a lot of times to go out drinking. I did not. And it hurt me, but it helped me in a lot of different ways. Hurt me because I didn't have that social FaceTime with a lot of the higher ups. But it helped me because people didn't know about me. They didn't know what I had going on. But for a lot of people that lived on that campus, they were living in a fishbowl 24/7, 7 days a week. Um, and a lot of stuff got disclosed while they were out drinking. And that was not an environment that I wanted to be in. But it was an artificial kind of social media world because you're living under constant surveillance where every action that you take in that residential environment can be logged, documented, and reported up the chain. And either you're going to receive condemnation for it or somebody's going to celebrate it. And that changes the way that you interact on a fundamental level where you constantly know that somebody is watching you and judging what you're doing. Okay. We had reality TV, like back in the days when I was growing up, we had reality TV shows that simulated that. And we all thought it was weird. Why would you want to live like Big Brother? Why would you want to live under constant surveillance of a camera? Okay. But now everybody is in constant surveillance of a camera. If you think your phone isn't listening to you when you're not talking to it, you are mistaken. Okay. That's just how it be. Okay. And so there's a level of performance that ties to it. Okay. And so now people experience themselves in two different layers. Okay. Who they actually are and who they appear to be publicly. Used to be who you actually are and who you appear to be publicly, minus the internet. But now people can compare those two things and see if there's cohesion between those two things, and then you end up you can end up making your life a living hell for a while because of that if those two things do not align. We're seeing it right now with a lot of the Epstein shit, where it predates, a lot of this predates constant internet surveillance and then falls right into it. And so as somebody who I believe was probably an intelligence asset for numerous governments, his entire gig was building dossiers on people. And so the internet hastened that. It made it a lot easier for him to catalog everything that somebody was going through and everything somebody was experiencing. And it's a weird thing. And so I think people thought that they were living privately, but was actually getting logged and cataloged. And so that's what the shock is with the Epstein thing, because you're getting a chance to see who these people really are. And it don't align with them being leaders of industry, leaders of men and women, responsible for the well-being of men and women, when you see them as potential degenerate monsters who participated in torturing and brutalizing children. It don't align. The two things don't align. And that was crazy about what happened with the Epstein thing, because it does cross that line of where it happened pre-internet and post-internet. And you had a bunch of pre-internet people who had never really been online like that, doing and saying things that were being cataloged and documented the entire way. And now they are using their resources to bury it, to make sure it doesn't see the light of day. And it's not necessarily happening that way. But so it used to be you could have your internal self and a performed self. Now those two things are tied together. Okay. And so social media encourages this level of self-surveillance. People monitor how they will perceived while they are experiencing life. That makes sense, where people are constantly, all the time, 100% constantly editing themselves to be this version of themselves that they present themselves to be. And even the I'm not woke brigade, they do the same shit where they put on a caricature of it, because there's no way that some of these specifically guys um, are really like that in real life. And if they are, I can imagine living with them is an absolute unique type of hell to experience. That probably could get documented and be its own thing. Just being, let's keep it being. And so it can really be like this weird, unique type of self-generated hell. Okay. But they feel like in order to be the person that they present to be online, they have to perform that person in all aspects of their life where they might have a camera in front of them. Okay. And social media encourages it. Like it monetizes that performance. And monetization means you can get paid with money, you can get paid with attention. For a lot of people, they ain't making no money on this. I just got my check from Facebook yesterday. Went directly into my account. I'm good. But a lot of people are doing this for free online. Okay. And people pay attention to how they will be perceived at all times in all interactions. Okay. Again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're a terrible person, being forced to audit yourself and audit your behaviors on a consistent basis may be a good thing. It may improve the quality of life for people around you. It may improve your quality of life. But if you're not a terrible person, sometimes people are incentivized to be obnoxious just because that's what draws the most attention to them online. That's not necessarily a good thing all the time. Okay. And so experience becomes something you partially observe in real time, because you're not really you can't experience life and observe it at the same time. Okay. So, and social media is a dope record of this kind of stuff, because you could go through and scroll through like Twitter, you could see major events that happened in the country, in specific countries, and see how people are reacting to them in real time. This is before Elon took it over and made it a bot-filled Nazi hellscape. You can actually go through and see major events that happened in entertainment or politics and things like that, and see people's reaction to them in real time. And it's really kind of an interesting little archive, because there's been no point in history where you could do that. Like, I can't necessarily go back online and find how people were posting and reacting to 9/11. I remember experiencing it because it was my birthday. It was my birthday. I think it was like either my 21st or 22nd birthday. I can remember people going through an experiencing 9/11, but to go back and be able to pull up somebody's social media account, pull up social media archive and kind of see how people were reacting to it in real time would be fascinating. Right now we have that, and like I said, it's neither good nor bad. It's neutral. Okay. Now the other side is you get a chance to essentially frame your own life narrative while living it, and most of us are unreliable narrators. I'm gonna repeat that. You get to frame your own life as you're living it, and frame your own life narrative while you're living it. And a lot of us are unreliable narrators, and sometimes being able to see our own hypocrisy shown in our faces can either be humbling or it can be disorienting. Not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, but editing your personality for audience compatibility. Again, neither good nor bad, but it can have benefits and really be negative. For some people, if you've cultivated an audience full of awful people who believe awful things, you end up editing your personality to be compatible with awful people. And at some point, that seeps over into your real life. A lot of times I see people complain about their social media feed is full of negativity and awful stuff. And I have to ask them, what are you sharing? What content are you consuming? Because your social media um, really is an online record of what you are consuming at the time. If your social media is nothing but negative news and ugliness and political divisiveness and things like that, um, and awful things, a lot of times that means that you're consuming and sharing political divisiveness, awful things, and that's what your media diet. That's what your social media diet is. If you want to change your social, if you want to change your social media feed, change what you consume, because social media platforms are engineered to keep us on platform, and the way they keep us on platform is show us things that they think we'd be interested in. Every once in a while, something will break containment, and they'll be testing things to see if you're interested in this. But more times than not, your social media feed is a reflection of the things that you consume on a daily basis. And so if you don't like what your social media is showing you, then change what you're looking at on your social media. People don't like that. They don't like hearing that, but it's a real thing. Now, there are places where the thumb is on the scale. I know on Twitter specifically, there have been tests where they've kind of tested, and I know it's X. I know it's X now, but it's mama named it Twitter. I'm gonna call it Twitter. Um, Sorry, I'm dead naming Twitter, but it is what it is. Um, One of the things you find on Twitter is they've tweaked the algorithm in a way that shows and I forgot what test it was, but um, if you're a neutral account where you don't have where they built a fake account that was completely neutral. They built an account that was considered right wing or account that's considered left wing. The account that was right wing got served kind of a moderate level mix of right, or not moderate, but um a blend of right wing content that aligned with their interests. That makes sense because that's how social media works. The neutral account got double the amount of right wing content, and um the moderate account or the left wing account got the same level of right wing content that the right wing content got. And so that means that there's something going on in the algorithm where it has a bias to show that kind of stuff. And people could paint it any kind of way, but there's intentionality behind it. Not all actions are neutral. And I think that's one of the things that we assume as human beings, that if something happens, it's a neutral thing. That wasn't neutral. That wasn't a neutral decision. It aligns with the guy who owns it, and aligns with his political ideology. And we're starting to see that more. And I think that's something we have to be really cognizant of. As politically, um, I don't want to say radicalized, as politically defined individuals take over social media platforms with specific agendas, you're going to start seeing more and more of the content that they value showing on your feed. And that's just the game. And you got to be aware of it. Experiencing on Twitter, I'm experiencing some on TikTok a little bit. Um, because here's the thing. When the billionaires take over these social media platforms, they're going to try to leverage the social media platforms to make them more money. That's the game that's in play. And so by that, they're going to try to influence people to vote the way that they want them to vote, support the people they want them to support, because at the end of the day, the game is how much money can I funnel into my pockets by owning this social media platform. Okay. And so you're always going to see the biases of whoever owns the social media platform reflected in the algorithm of the social media platform, because algorithms aren't neutral. They're coded by humans, and humans have biases. Okay. That's just the game. Okay. So the big problem is the main tension is when you start editing your personality for added audience compatibility, the perform self ends up beginning to shape who the real person is, where at some point it crosses the horizon and there is no gap between the two. Let me check something here because I have a feeling something might be happening here. One moment, please. I'm making sure that Fearless ain't broadcasting at the same time I am, because I got started a little bit late. Um, and so that's what it is. Okay. When identity is public, can it still evolve in a safe manner? Can it evolve safely? That's the question. I don't have an answer for that one. Okay. Now, I'm saying this as a Black person. I can speak as a Black male because that's my existence and that's who I am. Me and Fearless are broadcasting at the same time. So anyway, yeah. So I'm getting counter programmed by Fearless. That's why Facebook's not working. For him. All right. And so wow. That kind of threw me. That's really interesting. So what happened was, and this is a lack of communication on this is probably on me. I went ahead and started the program without checking in to see if Fearless was starting his. And the way that StreamYard is set up our live stream is we can't necessarily, it used to be you could see if somebody was already in the studio, but now you can't really see if somebody's already existing in the studio as is. And so as a result, when you have a joint, a show that's hosted by two people, yeah, when you have a show that's hosted by two people, you have to communicate. That's just what it is now, because StreamYard doesn't show you that the studio is active. It used to show you the studio is active, and I don't necessarily know why it's not showing me the studio is active on this account, but I really hope they revert whatever changes that they made to it, because it doesn't make a ton of fucking sense right now. Sorry, but StreamYard, that's an L. A lot of this has to do with the fact that I should have been able to log on and see that Fearless is already active in the studio, and I've been able to join his studio, and that is not the case right now. So we're sorting it out right now. Okay, so here's the thing. Politics used to be a component of your life. Again, if you're a marginalized person, Black, LGBTQ, brown, depending on what era you're existing in, Native American, whatever, politics had a different impact in your life. Your life was a little bit different depending on what your political existence was. Okay. But people had political opinions. They weren't the primary filter for their relationships. But at the same time, because I'm adding a little bit of nuance to this outline that I have. At the same time, depending on what group you are, like, let's look at like the 94 crime bill, right? The 94 crime bill as Black Zennial, you know, I'm in the between that generation between Gen X and Millennial. The 94 crime bill hit me specifically because I was the one that was targeted specifically by that. My sub-demographic of people targeted, Black males. We were narrowly targeted by the crime bill. Henceforth, our existence became a political enterprise. Our survival became a political enterprise because I grew up in the hood where, you know, the cops who were the primary enforcers of that that crime bill. What's up, Fearless?
What's up, man? Hey, when did you get on?
I got on about, okay, so I hopped on and started building things out around like 10:20, and I had to do a couple of things, and I launched around 10:30.
Yeah, dude, I didn't see any of this. I thought you were at the thing. Yeah, mate. Yeah, we gotta do a better job of communicating, dude. Because I thought you were at the Bellevue thing, and when I was trying to log on to all these, I wasn't able to at all.
So and this is kind of what I experienced. Here's what happened from my standpoint. Okay. Typically on StreamYard, and I mentioned this to the audience too. StreamYard used to have it where if somebody was active in the studio, you could just join the studio, click the button, enter the studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened to that feature on our dashboard because one of us should have seen the other one was active in the studio.
Right,
And it
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
show it. It didn't show it because if I would have seen that you were active in the studio, I would have just joined your studio. But
right.
I went ahead and said, all right, so I'm not seeing it, so I'm gonna just go get started. And I think this is an interface change that StreamYard needs to fix, because hosted shows, even if, you know, we could still have the communication, but we end up messing around starting our show late because one of us is in one studio, the other one's in the other studio, and we would not even know. And so StreamYard used to not do that, which is weird. I don't know why they decided, because does your studio look different when you enter? Does it look completely different than what you're used to?
Yeah. I gotta go up on top and change everything.
Yeah.
Or whatever, but like, yeah, I couldn't access anything.
And so that's why I text you, because I'm like, Fearless has to be on. And so that's why I'm like, Fearless got to be on. And so that's why I text you, like, are you on?
Yeah, right, I was on like I said, I was on the other one, and like I was just talking about just talking.
I've been going.
I don't need nobody around. I can just do it. I can just talk.
I hopped on, and it's like we're about 40 minutes in, and so I've been on that. And so, and the thing I've been talking about is, you know, and I'll kind of catch you up on what I'm talking about here. Let me fix this side of it, because that's driving me crazy. All right. So essentially what this conversation is when life became public and politics became personal. And I'm taking it from the frame of, and you're in the same age cohort that I am, where you're a Zennial, where you're in between Gen X and Millennial, which means by definition, you existed before the internet, but are young enough to participate in the internet. So existing as an entire fully formed teenager before the internet before social media took over.
As we know it.
Yeah.
As we know it. Because the internet's been around for a long time.
But like internet culture, like
yes.
Like social media.
Before it became mainstream,
right.
For sure.
Like we were still doing emails and stuff. We had Lotus Notes when I was in high school and stuff like that. Like we were still doing emails and stuff, but a lot of our online interaction was either in message boards, on AOL, or something along those lines. And it wasn't really that deep. And conversation I had with my daughter, because this sparked with a conversation I had with my daughter, where I said, basically said, Bray, the difference between me and you is, for me, I can look at something and say, that's online, that shit ain't real, that's the internet. Like, there's an entire, like, the internet exists as its own kind of little matrix, right? Like its own little sub matrix. For her, a lot of her interpersonal interaction is based online. A lot of her relationships with friends and stuff are online. And so she has to exist in these internet spaces, and it's more real for her, where I can strongly make a disconnect, you know. And my son will come to me about these internet outrages, such and such getting dragged for such and such. I'm like, all they is shut off social media and not engage. But, you know, and so for them, it's more real than it is for me. And that's a benefit. That's an age thing, because a lot of our interpersonal relationships weren't necessarily on the internet. And so we came of age before we were constantly under internet surveillance.
Right.
And so it shapes a lot of our perspectives. And so basically it's just that's what the topic has been up until this point.
Okay. Sweet.
And so basically we moved from being private to living an observed life.
Yeah, like an alien ant farm.
Right. And so the last thing, the point I was on that I was just concluding was the internal self versus the performed self. Okay. Who people actually are and who they appear to be publicly. And our social media kind of encourages that level of performance.
And that
level of self-surveillance.
That warpness.
Yes. Because what happens is the character that you play on social media ends up becoming the person that you are in real life.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people. And I think, and I said, I kind of posited, because I think me and you exist in this weird sandwich generation, because me and you have the ability to say that shit is online, that's not real, right?
Yes.
People behind us, the younger generations, don't really have that gap. But then the older generations are also getting bamboozled by a lot of this AI online
Right.
bullshit too, because they didn't grow up with it. A lot of this stuff is new to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll see, you know, we will see, you know, my father-in-law, rest in peace, he would send me articles that were complete bullshit and be like, Dad, that's not real. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's not real. That's AI generated. That's something made up on social media. And a lot of times he had to, you know, as you got older, people would, you know, and that's why a lot of the propagators of conspiracy theories and stuff online are older folks, because sometimes they don't have the ability to discern between what's real and what's fake on social media. But there are people in my age that are getting jammed up in that too. So I don't want to paint with that level of a broad brush stroke. So
you know what that reminds me of is War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Do you remember that?
Yep.
So when they were talking, and this was years ago, they ran an actual audio production of it, where they had the sirens and they had the horns and they had people yelling and screaming and this and the other as they were reading the book. And they had been saying, we're going to read this book online, not online, but on the radio. It's going to be theatrical. It's going to have horror, this and the other. And when they finally did it, people literally thought that we were being attacked by aliens. They actually thought that.
Yeah.
And so they reacted that way. A couple years after that, they did the same thing in Mexico. They read the same thing. And again, for weeks, they had told people, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
Mexico got freaked out so bad, they went down to the radio station, burned it down, and a dude got killed in there.
Wow.
Because they weren't playing, because that's how serious it was. So if they're doing this, give me some time. I'll get the dates for you or whatever, because I don't want to say something and people not know what I'm talking about. Yep. That's the one thing I love about school, is that it challenges you that before you open your mouth, you need to have your facts straight.
Yeah.
Because somebody's going to ask you, where'd you get that?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so, but my point that you were making is that even with us telling you, hey, this is fake. Hey, this is not real. The mind makes it real because you choose to believe this.
Right.
Because sometimes you may not have a juxtaposition of where you can't not believe it. You may not have another comparison to compare this bullshit to.
Yeah.
Because all you're being fed is bullshit. So you're trying to juxtapose one bullshit from the other. Well, you can't do that.
You've created, a lot of times people created this echo chamber ecosystem of bullshit that reinforces the bullshit that they saw online. And so, couple of examples here. One, a lot of the shit that was that jumped off in Mexico over the last couple of days with Puerto Vallarta and stuff, where you know, the cartel wars and all this other stuff, and people acting like, there's one group of people that were online talking like the end of the world is coming to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico is an apocalypse and all this other stuff. There's another group of people saying, I'm down here, ain't nothing happening, or there's stuff happening.
What's going on?
So they killed the head of some cartel down in Mexico.
And, who did?
Mexican security forces, and come to find out the CIA had something to do with it.
Of course.
And so they took out one of the heads of the cartel down there, and the cartel retaliated by setting a bunch of cars on fire and things along those lines. Now, initially, when you first started seeing the reports online, people were talking about, oh, they're snatching up American citizens and torturing people and stuff like that, retaliating against American citizens. And my BS detector goes off is like, okay, so the cartel knows that the thing that's keeping them from having to deal with the U.S. military in full force is not moving against American citizens. Why would they do that? Because that seems like to be a pathway to open up a door that they don't want open, right? And so my BS detector goes off a little bit. And come to find out this morning, when you get more, because a lot of it was coming from tertiary sources, secondary sources, and things along those lines. We start getting primary sources saying, hey, firsthand experience, they're actually, yes, they're telling Americans that are down there shelter in place, we'll do this, that, and the third. They are not targeting American citizens because I guess like my estimation, that would be stupid. From there, that would be detrimental to what their ends are. They are trying to upset things for the Mexican government as a retaliatory fact. Okay. You go online and people online are like, man, they're setting Americans on fire and all kinds of other stuff. And their ecosystem that they've built around themselves on social media actually reinforces the bullshit. And I remember what happened during 2020, where I had people on there talking about, man, Portland's on fire, man. Portland's burning. And my boy in Portland's like, hey, man, I'm walking downtown. That's like a little block over. That's like 3 blocks that they've kind of cordoned off where they turning up down there. Everybody else is just out doing their own thing. Me and my wife are out on the town.
Right.
But people have built this echo chamber where they're like, man, it's all on fire. Portland burning down. My boy's like, nah, it ain't really like that, man. It's like an area that's contained away from the main drag, and they acting fool over there, and it's not even that wild.
Kind of like Russia and Ukraine. Mm-hmm. My friend is from Russia, and her friend is from Ukraine, and they were sending each other pictures and video while all this war stuff's going on. I'm not saying it was not happening, but it wasn't as bad as they were trying to make it out to be, though. Right. Yeah. I got you. Keep going.
And so, but a lot of it, when I tell people, hey, my friend's over in Portland, he's saying they ain't doing nothing over there. Oh, you're lying. Your friend, I don't believe your friend is down in Portland. You making it up. Like, no, I think the person you need to be distrusting is yourself and the social media presence that you've cultivated, because it's feeding you lies. When you could tell somebody who's on the ground, they ain't really doing it like that. But the ecosystem you've built around yourself and your social media is reinforcing the lies that you're seeing. And that's what happened. And so I see the same thing happening with this stuff with the cartel down in Mexico. I'm not saying nothing is happening, but what I am saying is the way that some aspects of social media made it seem like we were in World War IV was hopping off down in Mexico at the border in Puerto Vallarta. And it really wasn't on the level that a lot of people were trying to make it. And they were making it that way. They were presenting it that way because that brought them, they were paid in attention. I just told people, I just got my check from Facebook. I'm good. I don't need to get paid in attention. Facebook paid me for real. But a lot of times people are incentivized to get paid in attention. And so any attention that they get is fine. And if they get attention for bullshit, then they will continue to manufacture bullshit.
That's one of the things too that my buddy Evan was telling me. He has a friend that lives in China, and his friend was talking about COVID a year before. Now I'm saying this, a year,
wow,
before it hit here, a year. My boy was like, man, you need to stock up on gloves, on masks, this and the other. I wrote him off as just being another conspiracy theorist, conspiracy nut. Like that dude in China, don't know what he's talking about. Boy, was I wrong. You see what I'm saying? Boy, was I wrong.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? And regarding, go ahead.
Well, no, just adding on to what you're saying. I remember when the COVID thing, they tried to make it seem like it was all 2020. Listen, I was writing a book. I got paid to write a book at the time, and I'm trying to write this book. My wife is going through it. She's like, my chest. I've never been this sick. My chest actually hurts. This is in 2019. This is real.
Yeah.
She's like, I've never been this sick before. And then it took down my son first, and then my wife, and my daughter kind of had symptoms. I was the one who got away with it, but I was trying to take care of all of them while I'm writing this book. And the person I was writing the book for was like, "What's going on with the book? Why my whole family is sick, bro?" And come to find out, we thinking it's flu. Come to find out, it's like this probably was COVID. This is 2019. This is like in late November, early December 2019.
Yes.
I remember people getting hit with it, going down.
Yes. And could not get back up for weeks.
Right.
For weeks. I knew people like that got really sick out of nowhere. And a lot of it was just in their chest.
Mm-hmm.
They had that stuff that just couldn't come out. Oh my gosh, dude, it was horrible. But here's the thing though. We all know of COVID, but before COVID, there was SARS.
Yep.
SARS is nothing more than an advanced case of COVID. Or right. vice versa. COVID is an advanced case of SARS. But while they were working on SARS, the medical community, more or less the scientists and people who work on that type of stuff, their funding was cut.
Yep.
Drastically. I don't know if people know that or not, but their funding was cut before they could figure out exactly how to work on SARS, how to defeat it, how to whatever they were supposed to be doing. Their funding got cut, so they weren't able to work on it anymore. About a year or so after that, that's when you keep hearing this talk of COVID.
Yep.
COVID this, COVID that, COVID this, COVID that. And it's only COVID-19 because of the year that it came out, which is 2019 or whatever. It's kind of like the influence of flu of, 1918?
Yeah.
Or whatever. What is it? No, it was 1918. That is really something if you think about that, though.
Every 100 years
every 100 years it's. So then, I wonder when the Black Plague. When did that? Wasn't that like the 7th? I thought that was that the 17 or 18?
Black Plague. I'm looking it up. 1300s.
13 shit.
So 1346 to 1353.
Right. And again, I mean, if it wasn't for them figuring out about them goddamn rats.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, they still wouldn't have gotten that. But even with the Spanish flu, mm-hmm. which I don't know if people actually understand this or not, but American doctors at that point, they were horrible. Mm-hmm. They were trash. They would have to usually go to England or Germany to become real doctors. But after that flu, kid, that Spanish, what was it?
Spanish flu.
No, the Spanish flu. What was the other one?
The Black Plague. There was okay. So let me throw this in here.
The one that was here in the U.S.
Oh,
around 19. Huh?
Oh, okay. So let me pull it up. Okay, real quick. So Spanish flu. I wanted to, because it's a thread that you touched on. February 1918 to February 1920 was the Spanish flu in America.
Okay, that one started in Kansas.
Yep, almost 100 years. Almost 100 years.
That started in Kansas. Now, here's the thing. It would have stayed in Kansas. But the problem is that the war had started. Mm-hmm. Whatever war that was, it was a war that started. And the person that was in Kansas was put on that plane and put on that boat with all them other people.
Yep.
And infected everybody. But they know that it's so I forgot why they called it the Spanish flu, but it started in Kansas. So technically, it should have been called the Kansas flu. But I think that that's where they mainly discovered it at, was in Spain, with Spain or something, it was something like that, of where they really saw it, and then that got the name for it. But it started in Kansas, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense. Well, and here's the thing. So when we talk about distortion, like reality distortion, right? During the COVID thing, it was not presented like, here's the thing. People just saw it as, okay, we can't go outside and we'll do this, that, and the third, right? My homegirl, a very close friend of mine, is a respiratory therapist in Chicago.
Okay.
And that shit was apocalyptic. What she was experiencing, levels of death that it still fucks her up to this day. Where, and you talk to a lot of medical professionals who are working in the ERs and hospitals and stuff around that time. It was mind melting how, and she was like, if people could see what I experience on a day-to-day basis, not only would they put on masks all the time, they would never leave the house until this was over. It was that bad. And for her experience never got accurately reflected, because people are like, oh, you guys are just, you remember how people were? Oh, they're just hyper, they're just blowing it up. They're just trying to scare us and this, that, and the third. When you talk to people who actually were in the trenches with it, they're like, no, we saw guys that were our age and younger who had no health issues dying of it, and in horrible ways. Like, it was completely a horrible way to go. And she's like, it's not accurately getting reflected in people's social media diets about what this is and what this really is. And that was her take on it. And that was her perspective. That was her reality. So the reality she experienced didn't align with the reality that they were presenting online, and specifically on some echo chambers on social media, because they're like, oh, it's just a cold. It's a cold. And she's like, this is absolutely not a cold. And it's absolutely not the flu. This is 100% worse. But that's what I'm saying, where people have built this fortress of echo chamber around them, and all it does is just reinforce what they already believe. And that's a function of this hyper online life. Because before this life, you had sheltered people. I worked with one of them. We had sheltered people. Grew up.
Now, when you say sheltered, do you just? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and ask it so I can give some shape to it. What I mean by it.
No, what I was asking, do you mean that they just grew up in a fairly isolated town type thing, or they just never came outside?
Super suburban, like super suburban. And I have somebody very specific in mind. I'm not going to throw him out. I'm not going to throw him under the bus because he's cool as hell. But him and his wife grew up super sheltered, super suburban, middle Kansas, hardline suburban life. The way that they try to relate to me is like, oh, well, she used to teach in Kansas City. Like, okay, well, my family lives in Kansas City, so what are you talking about? So
is that how they relate to you?
That's how they were kind of relating to me. But super suburban, super conservative. Both went to like some super hardline Christian college and everything. Their first real experience with hood shit was, I was the first ongoing consistent person that grew up in the hood that was around them on a day-to-day basis, just because we worked together. Okay. And so when I'm sitting there talking to him about things that I experienced, like I was telling him about, I almost got killed when I was 17 a couple times, right? Just by a function of being outside. And a very specific incident where we were both working, we took the kids to the mall, and I was the one getting followed around the mall. And I'm like, I'm working, I have money, I don't need to steal anything. And confronting the security guard, like, sir, can I help you? And he didn't understand what I was coming from. I'm like, this is kind of shit that pisses me off, because I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm getting surveilled before I even walk in there. He's like, well, I mean, that's just his job. It's his job to just randomly follow me around to the detriment and ignoring everybody else. My friend used to work asset protection. He will train people and say, don't lock in on one person like that. And I said, you'll never understand it. Well, that's just his job. Maybe it's in your mind. It's in my mind that this man followed me from store to store to store to store. And so his subjective reality with racial discrimination was this happened for him. Racial discrimination was something that happened in the 60s and then magically ended in 1968. That was his subjective experience with it. And he just, and so when you try to explain it to him, his sheltered worldview was uncompromising. And it finally did get cracked. It kind of got punctured a little bit around 2008, the Obama thing and things along those lines. But his worldview was reinforced, but it wasn't completely impenetrable because he started to moderate on some stuff, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Now you have people that are so trapped in the echo chamber. They're in an echo chamber that is impenetrable. Because any fact you introduce to them, all they got to do is just find some bullshit, pull it off the wall, and try to counter your fact. Does that make sense? So it used to be you did have sheltered people, but there weren't necessarily 100% in an echo chamber. Like this dude the dude I'm talking about would proudly call himself a ditto head.
What is that?
Rush Limbaugh fans. Rush Limbaugh fans.
Well, they call themselves what?
Ditto heads.
Ditto, like ditto.
Ditto.
Like me too.
Yeah. They branded themselves as such. And the echo chamber Rush Limbaugh and AM radio provided him wasn't nearly as impenetrable as the social media cocoons that people wrap themselves in now. So I just tell that story because that's what I see. Like, when I say sheltered, that's kind of what I mean. Sheltered before internet really took firm hold on people.
All right, so this thing is more of like a tribal isolation.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As opposed to, but again, though, isn't that, well, I think that would kind of be for anything, though. For the most part, you know what I'm saying? I like to ride motorcycles, so I'm a full-fledged part of that particular tribe or whatever, that particular culture. But the ideology behind, you know what I'm saying? Like, for me, for an average motorcyclist, right? Cool, that's what's up. But for a person that's really not into that, or I'll give you an example. I love to ride, right? I don't mind riding with a friend or two, going somewhere, doing whatever, right? But riding with a patch on my back, like I'm out on that shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want nothing to do with that. Because what happens is you run across one of the white boys that, well, we call the white boys, we talking about Hells Angels, other outlaw biker clubs like that. And if they don't recognize you or know who you are, bro, you about to have a whole problem off top.
Right.
So again, and not only that, but I remember watching this show and the guy said, he was asking this other guy, hey, have you ever thought about riding with a club? And he said, I do all kind of horrible things to people now. Why would I put a cut on my back and let everybody know that that's what I'm into?
Right.
Once I heard that, I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. And at that point, I never wanted to. Like, again, if I'm going with friends, that's one thing. But if a friend of mine has his cut on, I don't want nothing. I don't want to ride with you like that.
Right.
Because I don't want people thinking that I'm your prospect or some weird shit like that. I'm riding because I just like to ride.
Well, you don't want to
I'm not riding because I don't want to. Right. I don't want to get linked to whatever shit you got going on.
Exactly. You don't want to get jammed up in that because it goes back to the whole gang shit, like growing up in a gang neighborhood. You're hyper cognizant of what somebody can affiliate you or associate you with.
Guilty by association, yeah.
And so you're hyper vigilant about, like, I'd still, color, loud ass colors and stuff like that. Like, if you grew up around it, if you know, right? Like, that's one of the things is if you know. And I think it's kind of born of that, where you're like, I don't necessarily want to be affiliated with these guys because it brings a whole nother level of headache into my life that I don't really want in my world, right? I remember, shoot, I'm thinking now. I talked about the sheltered. I had a dude that called me sheltered at this place I was working at. Bro called me sheltered because I'm like, because he mentioned someplace far out in western Nebraska. I'm like, I don't be out in western Nebraska like that, bro.
Like where?
Is somewhere in the Panhandle. I can't remember exactly where.
Alliance, Scottsbluff, Gearing,
something like that. And it's
yeah.
like, yeah, I don't really do western Nebraska like that. He's like, oh, you're sheltered. I'm like, I'm sheltered. Have you ever been in a drive-by? Have you ever been caught in a drive-by? Well, no. I said, well, you're sheltered. Like, there's different tiers to experience, different levels of experience we talking about. But back to your point, your experience does shape how you view the world.
For sure.
And you know how people are around a lot of the motorcycle gang culture, and how some people who are in the motorcycle gang culture move and stuff with the clubs and stuff like that. Keep them, you know, I don't want to be associated with that. I just like enjoying what I'm doing out here.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
I just want to enjoy riding for riding's sake. I don't know what y'all got going on. I don't want to know. It is none of my business, sir.
Right.
Whatever y'all doing out here, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I don't want to have nothing to do with that. Like, hell no, I'm good. Speaking of, thank you. I'm gonna hit him up for I need to have homeboy put some speakers on my motorcycle.
Okay. So, and I think we kind of touched on what I was going into with this identity becoming externalized kind of thing, you know?
Right.
Because I'm a marketer. I'm into the branding thing, right? And a lot of times people will brand themselves as a specific type of person, and then they feel like they have to embody being that specific type of person. And it's kind of a weird thing. Like, I don't like you just mentioned, you know, you didn't want to brand yourself as somebody who's in some motorcycle club, because that's not the attention that you want. But a lot of times people will wrap themselves in these ideologies that they find online, and that ends up becoming the entire personality, and it ends up becoming the character that they play. Right.
Right.
There's a book where is it a book or a movie I'm thinking of, where somebody gets lost in a character? This might be a movie. In Too Deep. You ever seen that with LL Cool J and Omar Epps?
Oh, and his name is God. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of thing where somebody ends up being undercover. Well, Deep Cover does the same thing, right? With Lawrence Fishburne. Where you get so invested in this character, this undercover cop gets so invested in the character that it starts bleeding into who they really are in real life.
Kind of like Bishop did for Bishop and what was homeboy's name? And it was Bishop, Tank,
Juice,
Bishop, Tank, and Lucky were the people that Tupac played.
Oh yeah,
in different movies.
Yep.
Whatever. Each one of them was actually like the main antagonist in each movie, right? I think Tank was the one when he had the scar on his. No, did he? No, he had the patch over his eye. I forgot the name of that movie. That was a really good one too. Like a really good one. And then he played Bishop, right?
Yeah, and Birdie.
Birdie.
With the scar on his face.
Yeah, Birdie. Or whatever, in Above the Rim.
Right.
And then Bishop, and then Tank was on that other movie. Man, goddamn. And that's such an amazing movie. Oh, I find out the dang name of that. But yeah, so because when people talk about him, they're like, dude, he wasn't those characters. Those were characters.
Mm-hmm.
But those characters bled into everything else.
Right.
That 17-year-old that you saw when he gave that interview about he and his mom being, extremely arrogant, and he was kind of like sus a little bit. That's him. All this other stuff just came a little afterwards. Bullet. That's the name of the movie, Bullet. That was such a great movie. Oh my God.
And a lot of it, and people don't realize, and I tell people this, and they get mad at me when I say it's like, you got to understand that Pac was a classically trained actor. Like, he had some classical training as an actor and as a performer on stage. And so he knew some nuances to make his characters realer than other people who were just rappers who were coming into
right. Yeah, for sure.
But then also some of that acting bled into it, so it kind of started informing some of his music. And so that's where you get this multi-dimensional version of Tupac, where the warrior poet, the thug poet kind of thing. That was a crafted image that sold really, really well. But the problem is it ended up subverting who he actually was, and he started trying to embody this person at all times, and the cameras are around. And then when the cameras weren't around, and that led to a lot of interpersonal things that ended up leading up to him dying. Like let's be honest with you, that's what happened. Where a lot of ego played into it. He ended up was jumping that dude. Him and Suge ended up jumping old boy, and then got pulled up on and got shot. This wasn't like some.
Right.
This wasn't just like some, at least according to what the evidence says so far. There are other people who have other conspiracy theories, but the prevailing thing right now is a lot of it had to do with a conflict he got into on the Strip, on the Las Vegas Strip. And a lot of that had to do with fully believing the role that he was playing at the time. And that's problematic, because there are people right now that are doing the same thing online on the internet, where they've created a character for themselves, and then that character ends up becoming who they really are, and they end up getting jammed up behind it. It makes them so much money, but then they end up doing stupid shit because they end up believing the person that they present to be online. That's the danger a lot of these kids are in, bro. Like, I'm be honest with you.
Right, but then but you also got to remember that again, understanding who and what a person is in general, you got to remember this is the same dude who saw a black dude in trouble and pulled out and shot 2 off-duty police officers.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And he didn't even know the dude that was being accosted. That's just the type of dude that he was. So, again, him putting hands on another dude that you really don't know nothing about seems to be his MO in general, to try to help, to try to be of assistance. And again, like they said before, I watched an interview with Neckbone, one of the people he shouted out to live and die in LA. And one of the things that he talked about was that, like, Homeboy was just like that in general. And he said that Vlad asked him, why did he go up to Orlando and hit him? And what Neckbone said was just so poetic. He said, dude, we just got done watching Tyson whoop on some dude. Pac was already amped up anyway. So when you watch something like that, you feel invincible. You know what I'm saying? You hear such, you walk over, your homeboy just got done whooping somebody's ass in the first round in like 30-some seconds. You come out, bomb on this dude, y'all start stomping him out. What do you think? What do you think is gonna happen to you?
Yeah.
You think that boy, seriously? And again, going back to calling yourself Machiavelli. that's crazy that you would call yourself that, where this individual, um, that this person, if you study Machiavelli the Prince, if you've read this book at all, you would know that one of the things that Machiavelli talked about is do not pick a fight with somebody that you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nothing. Another thing is, don't start anything. But do you look like your camera froze? Like you look like you're dead tired.
Who, me?
Like you look like your camera froze.
Oh.
It just freezes. But you're like this.
No, you got me mid blink.
Like man, I'm telling you, like you. But he was basically just saying though that, I mean, in the book, also when you go to war with somebody, make sure you understand the terrain.
Mm-hmm.
That means make sure you get the feel. You're sucking in, but it says basically make sure that you understand your environment, and he didn't.
I was looking over at YouTube to see if there was a comment that got stuck in. I think me opening up that YouTube ended up freezing my browser.
Did it?
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I think when you talk about it, I think again, we're seeing somebody whose personality got subsumed by this person that they were on record in public life. And I think and this is all speculation, y'all. Don't kill me for this. Don't be mad at me for this. I think had Pac survived,
or be mad, doesn't matter.
I think had Pac survived his ordeal, he probably would have told you something similar. I got caught up in this lifestyle, and ended up performing who I was for a while. And part of it is people forget, man, was he like 24 when he died? Like 24?
26. 25 or 26.
Yeah. He was still in a very, very young man, to the point where, he's 25. He's still a very young man, right? And one of the things about young folks is your brain doesn't fully develop until you're in your late 20s. And so you are still subject to some of the same impulsivity and acting out as a teenager. You're just older, right? And so a lot of shit that happened, had he had the maturity,
lived a little
bit longer, he would have been able to reflect a little bit more on this and said, yeah, that was probably dumb. That probably wasn't my best decision. It probably wasn't justified. But what people do is they forget that this dude was still a young man, and 25-year-olds act stupid. I mean, 25-year-olds do stupid shit. And that's just a function of being in your mid-20s, right? And I think people romanticize what happened and want to villainize what happened, how it came to be, and villainize the people on the other end. But they're also in that same age cohort. And so a lot of bad thinking was happening at the same time, parallel to one another. And that's setting the stage for a tragic situation.
Right.
That's all. That's how I view it, at least. When we talk about, Biggie or Pac or any of these guys that die super young, any of these musicians that die super young, shit, look at Jimi Hendrix,
same age.
Yeah. You're talking about somebody whose brain is still developing in a lot of sentences, and they're not quite yet the man that they're going to be.
All right.
And unfortunately, sometimes people don't survive that stage. Because you go through that age where you feel invincible. I'm in their 20s. You feel invincible.
Right.
Until you realize that you ain't. You know what? The thing that crossed me over from feeling invincible to realizing I wasn't, when I was in my early 20s, I think I had to be 23, 24, I almost died of the flu. And I'm not talking about the flu. I'm talking about influenza A. I was on the verge of death. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, had to take me to the ER, and I was within not too long of passing on with a high fever and all the other shit that comes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the recovery was awful. And I realized at that point, like, oh, I'm not. And I'd already experienced almost dying like 3 or 4 other times, near death experiences 3 or 4 other times. It was that where I'm like, oh shit. Wait a minute. It's not a bullet. It's not a car crash. It's nothing. It's something as stupid as the flu.
Mm.
But that's also why that was the year. And I tell people that was a year I said, I don't need no vaccination. I'm fine. I'm healthy.
Okay.
And the flu proved my ass otherwise. It almost killed me. And I'm dead serious about it. The doctor said I was really, really close to it. They had to do all kinds of emergency, try to get my fever down. My fever was, where I was on the verge of seizures and all kinds of other stuff. It was bad.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is my mid-20s, man. That's when I realized, when I flipped that switch and realized, wait a minute, Brian, you aren't invincible. But some people never get that moment. And I know Pac had been shot before, right? Like he had survived getting shot before. But sometimes it takes a couple of times to jolt you out of it. And unfortunately, it didn't click over for him. But again, I digress.
Okay.
Let's talk about let's throw in some politics here, right?
You sure?
Yeah. Okay.
Here's the thing. I'm saying, are you sure? Because here's the thing. I'm in this college mode now, where I could talk about how I feel about certain stuff, but I'm not going to talk about what I know about certain stuff until I look it up myself.
Well, okay. So the point I guess I should have phrased that a little bit better. Let's talk about how politics used to be an aspect of your life, right? Like before we got into this hyper surveillance, hyper online culture, you might have been affiliated with, you might have voted a certain way. You might have had certain ideologies, certain thoughts that were aligned with your politics. It wasn't the totality of the being. It wasn't your entire existence. It wasn't the character that brought you money. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And now people have found this is a quick way to get attention and money. If I embody the political aspect of my being and I try to live it out loud online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people are going to stuff money into my pockets. That's what I'm talking about. Where it shifted from people having political opinions to where it ended up becoming their entire identity. And I've watched somebody I know and care about fall down into that trap, where they branded themselves as this hardline, I'm not even going to throw a hardline political identity, and ended up becoming their entire personality. And everything that you know about the person ends up getting subsumed by that. That's what I'm talking about. Is that more in line? Are you comfortable with that one, that angle a little bit more?
No, we can talk about whatever. I'm cool on that. I'm just saying, if we discuss something, I would at least like to know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? If we're just talking about like an opinion, that's one thing. If we're talking about a fact, you see what I'm saying? And I think that we live in this culture now where I don't think people can distinguish the difference.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that people can, but I can. Mm-hmm. So I would rather talk about something. We could talk about whatever. I'm on that, whatever. But I'll just state what I think or what I feel until I see something different.
Well,
until I go look at it myself. You know what I mean?
All right. So hold on one second, Liberty. I'm gonna throw your comment on the screen. So I'll add a little bit of context to what I'm saying. Okay. We were talking about political echo chambers, right? And how people can trap themselves in reinforced bubbles of political ideologies that align with theirs, and then you try to introduce facts into it, and they can pull a piece of bullshit off the wall and try to disprove your fact in their brain, invalidate the fact that you presented them in their brain. Okay. And so we're talking about life pre-internet and post-internet, right? And how people create these characters or caricatures of themselves and ends up taking over their lives. Okay. So I'm saying that before I get into reading your comment. So that's the frame of reference that I'm putting in there. Okay. How does it differ from political observers of old days? Their job was to comment and give opinions on politics, just different styles and platforms. No. Well, but that was their job. It wasn't who they that wasn't their entire personality, like the totality of their being when you interact with them in real life versus when they're on in front of the camera. What I'm saying is ideally they probably would have been different people. Like there's a camera a performance version that they present of themselves and a real person that they present when the cameras are off. Now there's no line. I'm saying there's no line.
Yeah, doesn't seem to be.
You meet somebody, you meet somebody and they embody the entire political ideology. They believe they have to live it. They get it tattooed on them. That's all their conversations are. That's how they determine what they talk about and where they go and how they exist. And to the point where you actually have people saying, I actually have friends I've lost to joining a political movement where it's like, wait a minute, like, is this all you are now? Is this all you exist to be now? Like we used to talk about other things. This is your entire ideology. Your entire thing is pissing off the libs or pissing off the conservatives or pissing off whoever. That is the totality of your being. That's the only thing you exist for. I think that's the internet thing. Because pre-internet, political ideology, people that were extreme, but we saw them as extreme.
Yeah, I hear you on that, Liberty Switcher. Whatever, but I think that the difference is though, if from my opinion, is that one doesn't create laws that affect the crap ton of other people. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other one just has an opinion that one has an opinion that's highly favored. One has an opinion that will touch everybody.
Yeah.
Or you know what I'm saying? It's, I mean, for me, that's kind of how I look at that. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that both of them can't coexist or that one doesn't alter the other in some way. But again, if we're just talking about a politician versus the Kardashians or whatever, one puts pen and pad that can destroy a person's life. Mm-hmm. The other one puts pen and pad and everybody just watches it. That for me, that's it. Well, again, I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I look at that.
Well, from a marketer's perspective with the Kardashians, one thing to be cognizant of when they're doing their show, a lot of times the show is scripted. Elements of the show are scripted to align with other personal business ventures that they have running. And so they will encounter something on the show that they have a business venture to address. Does that make sense? Like they'll have a hard time finding a dress in this size or something like that. Well, she just launched a company that addresses this specific thing. And so the show is a promotional vehicle.
Oh yeah. But they done made so much money off that shit. It's crazy.
And
they are billionaires.
Yeah.
Billionaires because of that show.
Yeah.
And billionaires because of that show.
And the reality is scripted to further their real world business interests. Okay.
There it is.
And so I think that's a difference between somebody like them who's made billions off of it versus somebody who's hyper online who only gets paid with attention by people looking at them and seeing them online, by having bajillion followers and not really making any money off of it. But their celebrity in that world, in that sphere of people that fuck with them, because they're saying what these people want to hear. And then it ends up becoming intoxicating to them. And now they end up making that in their entire personality, man. Like I said, I've had a friend who just absolutely got sucked into all of this. I have one that got sucked into all of another one that I was able to kind of pull off the ledge a little bit and say, hey, this thing that you're putting out there is conspiracy theory bullshit, and here's the proof. She's like, oh my God, thank you for rescue. I was about to go down that rabbit hole. So I think that's the difference. Where, you know, and for some people, politics is their life. Like, again, I was talking about this earlier when Fearless came on. I am Black Xennial, right? I was directly impacted. My group, me and Fearless's age and racial cohort was directly impacted by the crime bill, the 94 crime bill. Our identities, our existing became a political overnight. The way that we were talked to, the way we were interacted with in public by police, all of that stuff changed almost overnight. And so just existing as Black males when the crime bill came down made our existence a political existence.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were litigating our humanity in the halls of Congress and Senate and in the White House. So when you end up becoming the focus of a political enterprise, it kind of changes the way that you identify with it. Did that make sense, Fearless?
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, of course it does. I mean, it's just like how Black Lives Matter is. And again, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of stuff that they do, but the one thing that they haven't done is killed anybody. And then had a history of doing so, and be called a terrorist organization, being said the Ku Klux Klan is not a terrorist organization.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it just kind of lets you know, like, exactly, like, what's favorable here and what's not, what's acceptable, what's allowed here.
Yeah.
And what's not, what's egregious as fuck, and also what's not. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, again, and again, we live in this so-called democracy or whatever, but it's also extremely hypocritical as well, because as Jane Elliott put it, you know this is wrong if you wouldn't trade places with these individuals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're doing is wrong if you would not trade places with them. And even if you did, if you were treated anywhere near how they're treated, would you be okay with that? And if you would not be, then obviously something has to change.
Right.
And again, that's not a thing of right and wrong. It's not a thing of it's a thing of humanity and dignity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Would you want to be treated with some type of dignity? Not based on what happened 20, 30 years ago, not based on 400 or 500. Dude, for me, that's just done.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move forward. But you can only move forward if we all move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that it's just like when people say, why do you guys always talk about race? Why do you guys always, I'm always like, why you always do shit that would even make us talk about that shit? So again, you hold me accountable, but when I try to hold you accountable, it's, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Stop doing fuck shit, and I won't have to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and some people find that their past is their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And cool, if that's your thing, that's your thing. For myself, I understand to an extent
Mm-hmm.
what my responsibility is and what I'm accountable for. But what I am not going to do is let somebody else's narrative affect my future and my process. But at the same time, though, what happens when your authoritarian narrative trumps my autonomy.
Yeah.
Then what? I mean, do I just sit back and keep my mouth shut? Or do I say something? Because if I say something, now here we go again with the whole, you know what I'm saying? Here they go bringing up race again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's not race, it's right and wrong. Like, knock your shit off.
Well, and I think one of the things we have to be aware of, and I think a lot of people need to understand this. In this country, the way that race is discussed and presented, where we talk about it is everybody has their race, but white is neutral and white is normal. And that's the way it's presented in this country.
Mm.
Everything that is not white is not neutral or not normal.
Yeah.
But white people are this racial neutral. You know, they exist as a racial neutral. And your proximity to that neutral determines your place in the hierarchy of this, right? And so that's where you get model minority groups and things along those lines, where a lot of it is jockeying to be considered racially neutral.
Yeah, for sure. And you see a lot of people doing that shit too.
And I think you're not understanding, like, it's a privilege not to be able to exist and see the world in that frame. That's what I will say. It's freeing to exist, and we'll just stop thinking about it. But that doesn't change my reality of not being neutral. And I think that's one of the things that until we actually have that conversation and say, well, unfortunately, we can't treat white like it's the default race and everybody else is alternative or abnormal. We can't have intelligent conversations about race until we address that thing right there.
Right.
And so that colors a lot of our conversations regarding this. And so as a result, again, my life and Fearless's life, when that crime bill came down, was tied to politics because it was legislated and signed into law. I will never get off Bill Clinton's neck for that. I will never get off Hillary Clinton's neck for that crime bill. But also, we have to take into account that it was sold to a lot of older Black people as an answer to the crime that they were seeing. And so they didn't have the frame of reference or context or awareness of what was happening to advocate vociferously against it, because they did fall into the trap of believing that having more police will decrease criminal activity. And it doesn't.
It does not. It doesn't deter whatsoever.
They fell into the trap of thinking locking people up for longer times with harsher sentences would decrease crime. It doesn't. But
not whatsoever.
They bought into it. And so they have to take that into an account as well. But like I said, you know, when I was growing up, my mom believed the crime bills would work. And then as she got old, a couple years after, she's like, oh, this is not working. By having a Black son, she's like, wait a minute. You're like, wait a minute. You are an honor student. You're on your way to college. You're in advanced courses. You never get in trouble. How are you on the gang list? Because my cousins and people,
I was on there. I was on there too.
You know, how are you being lumped in with these bad kids? And it's like, Mom, instantly that puts me on a different trajectory for a lot of people, regardless, before they interact with me.
Before they even interact with you. You know what's really shitty about that too is that you're still on that list.
Yep.
Like, still to this day. I've been on that list since I was 15 years old. A child.
Well, how do you fix it? Well, you don't hang out with gang members. You mean my cousins? You mean cousins and friends, like people I grew up with? I'm not involved in anything that any street stuff. They're actually actively keeping me out of some of the shit that they was involved in. But just by proxy, me talking to them and being associated with them, all of a sudden I'm guilty by association. Is that how this works? Is that how this works in America? And that's the real question.
That is exactly how it works. You are guilty by association. Off top.
And we could get into it a little bit deeper because here's the thing, and you know this, and I know this, but you remember the snitch list?
No.
In Omaha? Okay, snitch list was and it was copping it when I was an older teenager. But every once in a while they talk about the new snitch list is out. And this is all the people that talk to the police, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or interviewed with police or whatnot. Where do you think the snitch list came from? Who would have access to who spoke to the police and who didn't? Do you think there's a gang? Yeah, you think there's a gang member sitting outside documenting everybody who walked into the police precinct or watching everybody's house?
No, I'm sure cops will probably tell you.
Cops were putting out that snitch list.
Yeah, cops were.
And so you have
Hey, you ever read about that one dude who I think they did that in California? Mm-hmm. He's either California or New York. And he put that snitch jacket on that dude. And he went into the cop shop and shot him up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like people don't play that shit. You playing with somebody's name like that, man. Some people take that for realsies.
Yeah.
Like, I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, I can't even. There's a dude. Like, you know what I'm talking about. I can't even mess with dude because that dude a rat.
Yep.
Can't even mess with him. Like, I can't say, bro. I can't talk to him. I can't break bread. Nothing, bro. I'll speak if I have to, but if I don't, man, I consider you a rat. Period.
There's a dude. There's a lady. There's a lady here too. You know, I think you might know what I'm talking about too. I'll tell you. I'll talk to you off air. But that's the jacket they got hit with, and the thing about it is, so it goes into the deeper question. So we have an entity that cultivates a list of people who cooperate with police and then releases that name of people who cooperate to the police to the streets and knowing that puts them in enhanced risk, right? So when I experience crime, who am I supposed to talk to?
Right.
Who am I supposed to build a partnership with? Who am I supposed to talk to, right? Like the same body that is supposed to be the crime preventers also compile a list of people that cooperate with them and interact with them and then release it to the streets. So you're asking, and then you turn around and ask, well, why doesn't the community want to cooperate? You tell me. Why don't they want to cooperate? You tell me. And so these are the things where I'm talking about, and I think we'll tie it back to this because we could, if Anya's got to get on her thing, we could start wrapping this up. I'll tie it back to this. I'll tie it back to this. That's what I mean when I say Black life is political. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's the enhanced police presence. That's legislative laws and things along those lines that come down the pipeline that narrowly impact Black people and are set in juxtaposition with one another. They want you to, you see something, say something, but then if you see something, say something, you say something, you get put on a list that gets released to the streets. So the people that did the thing that you saw know exactly who said it.
Right.
That's a real thing that happened. And I'm not as connected with a lot of, when I'm not working juvenile probation, I'm not as connected as I used to be with the street, with what was going on the streets. But I'd imagine there's a element of that's still happening. And I think that people don't realize the political nature of that side of things, because that makes your life inherently political, where you say you want somebody to do something to be legal, but then set the laws and you set the laws saying you want people to be legal, but then you set your actions in juxtaposition of the thing that you want them to do. That's what it is. So, y'all, thanks for tuning in. Fearless, do you have anything to wrap up with, man?
No, man, I'm good, dude. Sorry, guys, for the miscommunication. I would have been here 47 minutes prior.
Yeah, that's on me too. That's on me because I should have started a text message saying, "Hey, I'm starting up the stream." So next week we'll be a little bit more on point. I got to figure out how to change this dashboard back, because this doesn't make any sense. It visually doesn't make any sense to me either. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. I'm still offering my beta offer for the media room. I got a couple of people that have expressed interest. I'm following up with them. But if you want to get in, scan the QR code, it'll take you to the website, so you can kind of see what the offer is. Essentially, I'm offering business owners who want to get online and learn the process of how to make videos that work and convert business for them. If you want to learn the process and leave with a produced video, go ahead and hit that QR code and check me out. So that's all I got. I appreciate y'all's time. I will talk to y'all later. This has been Trial and Error with Brian and Fearless. Talk to y'all later. Peace.
See you guys.